What is the most disturbing thing to happen at your school? Story 1. My high school Spanish teacher had a reputation for singling out one student every semester for extra attention. This included calling on that student more than everyone else, accidentally brushing against them while slowly passing between the tables. And I once witnessed a student looking very uncomfortable while receiving a non-consensual shoulder rub from the teacher in the middle of class. I believe the reason this was allowed to happen for years was that the teacher was female and the objects of her attention were male. She targeted outgoing, popular, class clown-esque guys who she knew would laugh it off and downplay it out of embarrassment. I wanted to complain to the school administration about the back rub incident, but the guy pleaded with me not to make a big deal out of it. I was extra pissed off when I found out some of her victims, including my friend's older brother, had quietly dropped the class because they were so uncomfortable with her advances. Universities in my area require 2 years of a foreign language, and our tiny school only offered one language, and she was the only teacher. She was basically putting these kids in a position where they had to choose between putting up with her behavior or not being eligible for university admission or scholarships. I still get really angry when I think about it. Story 2. I went to a small, public school in rural Australia. There was a teacher in my high school who we all really disliked and called Voldemort due to both physical and personality similarities. The dude wasn't a mass murderer or racist, but he was still a bad guy. I honestly can't even remember his real name. To everyone he was just Voldemort. He also really hated being called this and gave anyone who called him this to his face automatic detention. The class below me had physical education with Voldemort. This girl Chloe had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and was low, so she had a can of Coke with her. She was quiet and pretty well behaved. She started dating the class bad boy, so to speak, called Otis. Anyways, Voldemort came up to her and demanded why she was drinking something sugary during class and in the gym. She explained to him her condition and why she needed it and was confused, because every single teacher had been informed. Voldemort said he'd heard, but he didn't believe it and took away her Coke. Well, her boyfriend didn't like that and asked him what he was doing. It then devolved into a shouting match between the two of them in front of the entire class, whilst she's starting to get pretty unwell. There are multiple accounts of what Voldemort's breaking point was. According to Otis himself, it was when he told him to stay away and also get a nose job. They were in the gym doing hockey that day, and Voldemort ended up chasing Otis, a 13-year-old boy, round the gym with a hockey stick. This is again in front of the entire class. And phones have just become a thing, so, of course, every single student filmed it on their phones. Of course, during this, Chloe faints. All the screaming attracts the principal, who walks in on a teacher literally chasing around a student, whilst another is unconscious. Suffice to say, he was fired that very same day. All the phones were confiscated, so the teachers could delete the footage. Chloe was fine, and Otis became an outright legend for finally getting Voldemort to expose his true self. Story 3. In my school, there was a no-shoes policy. We weren't allowed to bring our shoes past a certain line, to prevent people from putting them on again, I guess. So everyone left their shoes near the entrance. Then one afternoon, when we were leaving for the day, a girl couldn't find her shoes. She ended up walking home in her gym shoes. It happened again the next day. Someone else had their shoes stolen. This time they were not as expensive, but it was obviously still a big deal. Then the thief started stealing cheap shoes as well. Some girls had to walk home wearing plastic bags on their feet. Everyone was talking about it, and some people started hiding their shoes in their lockers. We were all trying to figure out who this person was and why they stole such different shoes, because stealing designer shoes made sense. But why would they take shoes with absolutely no resale value? It was most likely someone at the school, since the door was locked and needed one of those electronic key thingies. The thief was eventually found, and it turned out to be the receptionist. Why did she take them? Because she was scared that they would get stolen, so she wanted to keep them safe. Then she heard that shoes were getting stolen and decided to protect more shoes. She didn't make the connection. When people were talking about their missing shoes, we were told that she got a talking to, and we were not allowed to bring it up around her because it would make her upset. Story 4. The kind and popular teacher in our school was secretly making students get bullied. He's very popular. Young, good-looking, and very kind. Guys look up to him, and girls have crushes on him. Because of this, students will practically despise students that get special treatment, but turns out that is his way to get rid of bad students. He intentionally showed his interest in that particular student, such as saying in front of everyone that if they need help he'll be there, asking the students to have lunch with him, and so on. Being teenagers, the jealousy gets bad, and the special students will always end up being bullied or cast away. One of the bullied students realized it, see the pattern, gather some proof, exposed him to the school, and post it online. They got a video of him saying bad things about students, and saying that he intentionally made the targeted students bullied, so they can drop out, or at least move to another class. No one knows the reason though. It was pretty big. Story 5. Our school was old and was used as part of the World War II training of troops. Nothing really happened, but we did hear about some strange stuff, like it was used as a burial ground early on in an area that was off limits. There were apparently ghosts in the older part, but probably the strangest thing about that school was the other kids. No one actually saw them, as they were always hidden away, with different play, break times, different teachers, different class times, and different start and end school times. The only reason I found out about them was that we would do this reception duty for one day of the year, where two kids were selected to be greeters and help out with the secretary of the school and deliver stuff. Me and one of my friends had to deliver some stuff to their class. It was really odd, and that was the only time I ever saw these kids. Story 6. The choir director at our school had a relationship with one of his students, whom he'd been teaching since she was 14. They would have private lessons and quite frequently be alone in rooms together. In her senior year, she got the lead role in the school musical, because the choir director pressured the theatre director into selecting her. His wife, another teacher, found texts between the two and decided to divorce and expose him, rather than being fired. The teacher was allowed to submit a resignation at the end of the school year and leave quietly, but since it was a small school, everyone knew what happened. Story 7. There was an 18-year-old freshman who was pregnant, and there was a joke spread that this was her fourth kid. They said she was first pregnant at 12 years old, and that was why she never finished 9th grade. I actually made friends with her, because we both walked the mile in physical education, and I felt bad that people were spreading this rumor and making fun of someone who obviously is trying to better themselves for their baby. Well, turns out, it was actually her 5th kid. She had one set of twins at the age of 13. Then at 14, she was trying to be a mother of 2 and finish 9th grade. But she got pregnant again and dropped out. I realize now that the entire situation was very concerning. I hope she got some guidance. Story 8. My high school had a police officer stationed in it. Huge rumors were always flowing around the school about how he was known to bully kids. Multiple kids tried to complain throughout my years there, but somehow the officer always got out of it. Finally, after 2 more incidents, he was let go by the school. First kid got caught smoking while walking to school. I guess he was thrown to the ground pretty hard, and the officer said he was resisting arrest. He had serious road burns and multiple bruises. Also, everyone knew this kid was not the type to resist. He was a stoner type that just loved everybody. Then a girl got pulled over for speeding, and he pulled her out of the car very harshly as he called it searching places that a male officer had no business touching, especially on a 16-year student. He really only preyed on children that were alone. And I think his higher powers finally caught onto his tricks. A couple of years after he was let go from the school, there was a huge story on the news about a group of police officers, I think 3 or 4, who were arresting homeless people, mostly of native descent, bullying and leaving them laying there, then driving away. Karma finally caught up with him, and he was obviously arrested. Last I heard, he was going to be doing some time. Also, I imagine, and genuinely hope he is not enjoying his sentence. Crooked cops usually don't have the easiest time in prison. Story 9. So there was a rumor going around that a teacher was a real creep, and had been saying things to some female students that made them really uncomfortable. I had a class with this teacher, and he always gave me uncomfortable vibes. A few girls had even claimed they had seen him looking at their chests, but no one could really prove anything. One day, in the middle of class, we get a knock at the door, and 3 sheriff's deputies enter the room, telling everyone to remain calm. They then inform our teacher they have a warrant for his arrest. They place him in handcuffs and take him out of the room. Apparently, he had been having inappropriate behaviors toward one of the girls in his class, and her father was a deputy for our sheriff's department. She had told him what happened, and he had a warrant placed for his immediate arrest. Never saw the teacher again, but everyone saw his mugshot. The really disturbing part is whatever he said to her messed her up so much that she dropped out of school and was homeschooled until graduation. Story 10. There was a rumor while I was in high school that someone I went to grade school with was dating one of our grade school teachers. I heard it while I was catching up with grade school friends as a sophomore in high school. Well, last year found out it was sort of true. Turns out, that teacher was actually doing worse things to my grade school teammate. And also turned out she wasn't the first one either. And our school covered it up. I was studying in a Catholic school. Also, since it took her years to come forward, nothing can be done about it in our state. She managed to get a restraining order years before, but he was only arrested once. I wasn't friends with her then, but I am now. And I'm glad we finally put aside our differences to make a change. In working with Ohio State, we are working to change the Speak Up laws to include whenever a victim comes forward, not just up till they're 30. Most victims have repressed memories of these things that take years to surface. We are making a change together, making a positive out of the negative. She's now one of the strongest survivors I've ever met. Story 11. When I was in 6th grade, I was in a small school with about 200 students big. It was very small as we only had 2 bathrooms. Anyways, early morning the east bathroom got absolutely trashed one day. Someone didn't quite make it to the toilet. They left the login, but created a mud trail from the entrance to the toilet. This sparked a school-wide manhunt, as students wanted to know who the mud trail criminal was. Students refused to listen to the teacher, as everybody claimed the room smelled awful and they couldn't focus. Employees had their own bathroom inside the teacher's lounge, so it was only students that could have been the culprit. The teachers were forced to pair up students to go inside the bathroom and check each other to see if they were the mud trail criminal. Every class was ushered out of their room, and pairs would enter the bathroom, check if the undies are clean and report back to the teacher. It was going effectively, as every student wanted to clear their name. But before lunch came, the principal stopped the investigation and called a school-wide meeting The principal told us the student has come forward secretly and admitted to the incident. Everybody would be going home for the day to keep the student anonymous, as they needed to change their underwear, and if only they went home, it would raise suspicion. No one ever really discovered who the mud trail criminal was, but I was pretty sure it was one of my friends, as they were just sweating throughout the whole day. Story 12. I went to a military boarding school in my high school years. Taps occur at 10 p.m. All is quiet and the room lights out. Round 11:30 p.m. someone set off fireworks in the quadrangle of the barracks. The entire corps of cadets started to basically riot, including throwing burning trash cans and toilet paper, fighting on the stoops, and general mass chaos. Teachers, the commandant of the corps, and even the school superintendent, who lives 1/2 mile away, came into the barracks to stop the whole thing. Took like 2 hours to get everyone back into their rooms, and things put out with a few cadets needing medical attention due to injury. Some are pretty severe. The next day they required the entire school to stand at attention in the quad, in our company starting at 4 a.m. until someone confessed to setting up and starting the fireworks, which kicked off the whole thing. No one came forward for more than 2 weeks. That meant lots of standing at attention in formation, lots of people passing out, and the only free time was for 3 meals, bathroom breaks, and our required school classes. Hazing was utilized to ensure full compliance. It was a brutal 2-week period for just about everyone. Stress was to the max. Finally, 3 people came forward and were quickly expelled from school, while the rest of the corps of cadets was put into full lockdown. Dead silent meals and 0 movements after taps, with severe consequences if you did venture out. It was a very brutal time period, compared to anything else in my 4-year span at the school, which included 3 years of summer school. This event is still talked about more than 20 years later, as being the craziest moment in the history of the school. Story 13. This happened after I graduated. A bunch of students was selling tissues as part of a fundraiser. They were told that all proceeds would go to the burns unit at the children's hospital. One of the students found out that as part of the fundraising agreement, the school was allowed to keep part of the funds. The student didn't think this was right, and wrote to the principal asking that the school's share be donated as well. She also had a meeting with the principal, and when this was unsuccessful, she posted a picture of her handwritten letter to her cohort's Facebook group. As can be expected in Facebook conversations among that age demographic, there were a lot of mean posts in the replies, including one meme that vaguely compared the principal to Hitler. Someone printed it out and stuck it on a tree. The admin staff saw, and they brought the original student in for questioning. She had to open her Facebook profile in front of the principal, an associate principal, and everyone who commented, no matter how mild, was brought in for a verbal smackdown. Then came the suspensions. The person who made the poster was suspended, as was another student who tried to cover for him. The original student also got suspended for inciting anarchy. The students went to the media about the suspensions, but of course, the media interviewed the school and wrote articles that sided with the school. It wasn't until years later that the truth came out. The principal and associate principal were suspended for creating a toxic workplace at the school. Apparently, they were bullying staff. And then a bunch of other articles came out about the school, including one where the original student was interviewed. Story 14. My school got a new vice principal. It was my senior who liked to sit outside of the girls' bathroom and interrogate us about why we needed to use the bathroom. The week before the winter holiday, he hijacked the morning announcements and started saying, "Students, I have a very important message to give you that has unfortunately become necessary, and I require your full and undivided attention." We all thought something bad had happened, that he was going to talk about something serious. Do you know what he actually talked about? Gift wrap. That's right. He called us all lazy and entitled, and informed us that gift cards were unacceptable gifts to be given, bags and tissue paper were lazy and insulting, and that any respectable person must wrap their gifts in paper with a hand-tied bow. The next day he got gifts wrapped in paper with hand-tied bows. The first contained live crickets, the second was a glitter bomb, the third was laxative chocolates, and the fourth was a bunch of photos of people giving him the middle finger. There were more, but he didn't open them. He just hijacked the morning announcements and ranted about how we were all garbage people from a garbage generation. He later was investigated for his behaviors, and he was fired. Without a doubt, he was the worst vice principal ever. Story 15. We had a striking amount of rumors about teachers. One, in particular, was a lit teacher who had kids a few years younger than I was in elementary and middle school. When I was a junior, there was a rumor about him sneaking around with a freshman. He was maybe in his late 40s. My friends and I ended up befriending the freshman girl in question, because we went to a lot of the same pop-punk shows at the time. My friends latched onto her purely to find out if it was true. She confirmed, even showing us pictures of them together on his couch when his wife was out of town. We were really dumb and thought it was kind of cool, as we'd all had crushes on male teachers at one time or another, and one of my friends liked this teacher too. About 2 years after we graduated, when that freshman was a junior, the news broke to the community. He resigned but denied all of it, even though several people said they saw them sneaking around at night. About a year after she graduated, one of my friends was still Instagram friends with her and started seeing her posting pictures of them together. He posted pictures on his profile, too. My friend messaged her, and she gave a small update, just saying they'd worked it out, he got divorced and moved out, and that they were dating while she went to college. The older I got, the weirder it all seemed to me.